Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Monday morning, January 30th meeting of the Lewis County Board of County Commissioners. I've called the meeting to order, and we have a quorum present. All three commissioners are present, and I would like Commissioner Averill to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead with the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of January 23rd, 2012.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of January 23rd. Are there any questions or comments or additions? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Okay, we have time for a public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. And first person to speak is John Ratko.
My name is John Ratko. I've owned recreational property in Lewis County since 1967, which is 45 years. On that property, I have a cabin, a couple outbuildings. It's landscape. It's something that we've enjoyed for many, many years. As you are aware, 6 years ago, as I see the Davis Creek proposal today, and I read about this hearing in the Morton Journal, which my wife receives every week, talking about it. It brought back memories that was going on during that particular time period. In November of 2006, Walled Road washed out because of heavy rains. Lewis County then explored some opportunities to rebuild, to look at other possibilities, and decided, because of cost, not to rebuild the road or not to put it in another position. And I totally agreed with the decision that the commissioners made. For me, though, as a result of the washout, my property became landlocked without legal vehicular access. I've explored ways in which that problem could be solved in the 6 years since it's passed. And one of the things that I have done is that I have acquired an easement from Skate Creek Road over private property up to county property. This easement would get me within 1,000 feet of my cabin, 3 football fields. I have asked the county for a rough road easement to my property through the final 1,000 feet. And that discussion has been going on also for a period of time. This county property in question is on a designated floodplain. Mr. Larry Unselman, the property manager for the county, has declared in a declaration on January the 11th, 2011, that this property is of no use to the county. This easement that I've requested would be private. It would be constructed and maintained by me. I estimate that I use approximately 6 weeks during the year in which I am at my cabin or my family is at my cabin property. Some of that's purely recreational with family and friends. Some of it is to clean up, to get wood, to get firewood, to make whatever repairs are necessary. But about 6 weeks out of the year. As you know, I'm currently in litigation with the county about legal vehicular access for the remaining 1/5 of a mile. On this correspondence between my attorney and the deputy prosecuting attorney has been going on for a long period of time, for 2 years. We finally had a meeting at the county's suggestion with a judge and mediation hearing in Seattle scheduled for January the 15th. My team went up to Seattle. We were in a coffee shop in the building in which the hearing was going to be held. The judge came down and he said, Lewis County has called and said they're not going to show. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea what happened. To me, their failure to appear was very unprofessional. As I have indicated to the commission previously in writing, this litigation is costing me money, it's costing you money, and there are unnecessary expenditures. I ask for your granting or assistance in granting of this easement, which would require minimal expense and plain common sense. I thank the commission for hearing me.
Mr. Ratcliffe, just so you know, on the 15th of January, we were having a major storm, which is why we probably didn't appear. And if your attorney would, your attorney or the judge would have asked that question, they would have gotten that answer. We closed the courthouse, if I remember right, on that day.
I understand, and I would have, we
I-
would not
I take
have.
exception. I take exception to the fact that you're saying
understand
that we
that.
did
I
not
understand that.
notify, because I
And
think
I will
everyone
put
was
in
notified.
writing to the commission exactly why I take that
And-
position.
and this board
Because
will-
it should have been solved the night before, excuse me, it should have been solved the night before.
And this, no, it couldn't have been, I'm sorry, but this board will not comment on litigation that's coming on.
No, I don't expect a comment, sir. I don't expect a comment. Thank you.
Tim?
I could just clarify, please, that Mr. Ratco's attorney contacted our attorney the night before and asked for us not to show up to the meeting. We did postpone that decision until later the evening before. We did make the decision the evening before and emailed Mr. Ratco's attorney that we would not be making it because of the winter storm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the public comment list is Dennis Burton. Mr. Burton?
Commissioner, I'm here to talk about.
Would you just come up? We need you on the mic. Since we got you on the public comment, we have to get you. State your name and,
Dennis Burton, FEMA. I'm here to talk about the Davis Creek Bridge at the appropriate time.
okay, thank you. That ends our public comment period unless someone else has something to say from the audience. And then we'll move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the notice agenda item 1, resolution 12036.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve notice of hearing. Resolution 12036. Will the clerk please read that in the minutes?
Item 1, notice of hearing regarding Lewis County Code 12.10, movement of over legal limit vehicles. Hearing will be held on or after 10 a.m. on Monday, February 13th, 2012. This is resolution number 12-036.
Larry.
Larry Unselman, Real Estate Services Manager, speaking to item number 1, resolution 12-036. Lewis County Code 12.10 regulates the over legal movement of vehicles on all Lewis County roadways. Situations do occur where numerous over legal vehicles travel a short distance on county roads to a specific destination on a regular basis. The current situation is that over legal loads into the new Ritchie Brothers auction facility will utilize about 340 feet of Avery Road West, which connects I-5 to their access road. In this and other such situations, it would be more expedient for the county and the destination company to enter into a haul route agreement whereby the county waives permitting for movement of these over legal vehicles, and the company agrees to accept responsibility for any and all damages to the road resulting from such movements. All other requirements specified in Lewis County Code 12.10 would remain in effect. An amendment to Lewis County Code 12.10 to allow haul road agreements in certain instances in lieu of permitting would save the county administrative expense as well as being more convenient and efficient for the operators of these over legal vehicles. This resolution would set February 13th of 2012 as date for hearing on the matter and calls for all required publications to be made.
Yeah, a couple of comments, Larry. First, for the public, probably like I might have had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what's over legal. And actually, if you see it in writing, it put it together instead of two words as it actually is. And what it refers to is vehicles which are over the legal limits set by the RCW for weight, height, width, length, etc. And of course, most of these overweight loads come down the freeway and the state approves them. In this particular case, because of Ritchie Brothers, we're now going to be getting off at exit 68 and doing about 340 feet to reach the Ritchie Road and go in. Our procedure would be if on county roads, would be to waive the vehicles individually, but there's so many going to be going into Ritchie that it just makes a lot more sense to have a legal agreement with Ritchie Brothers in which they agree to repair any damages to the road between the freeway and their road. And that's essentially what we're doing. Another note, we're changing Lewis County Code. That's the actual codification of the laws of Lewis County. And we usually do that by ordinance, just as the legislature, when they make RCWs, they do it by bills. And so when we go out with a notice on this, we'll put an ordinance number on this because we're going to be making some changes to Lewis County Code.
Also, this amounts to probably well over 1,000 vehicles that are going to be over legal limit in the coming year. And so it would not be fruitful for us to process individual applications for over 1,000 different applicants this year in order to get those vehicles 340 feet down the road. Be a waste of time and resources in order to do so, and that's what this is designed to do, is eliminate that need. Thank you, Larry. Any other comments on the notice agenda? And then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of passing notice item number 1, resolution number 12-036, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 4, resolution number 12037 through 12039.
Commissioner,
Going to read them into the record?
did you second, sir?
Are we going to read? I'll second it. Yes.
Motion made and seconded. Would you please read those into the minutes with clerk?
You didn't hear me second it?
No, I didn't.
Item 2, resolution number 12-037, approval of warrants for payment. Item 3, resolution number 12-038, appointing a member to the Public Facilities District Board. Item 4, resolution number 12-039, approving an agreement with Lewis County Historical Society for support of the Lewis County Historical Museum.
Mr. Chairman, item 2 is our weekly reading of the warrants that we've approved. It's resolution 12037. It approves 144 warrants issued by the auditor's office for $496,869.13.
Thank you. Are you going to handle the?
I guess I will. Resolution 12038 approves the appointment of Todd Chaput of Chehalis to the Public Facilities District Board. Judy Duvall Chehalis recently resigned from the board. Todd has indicated interest in serving on the board and is hereby appointed to fill Judy's unexpired term, which ends in August 13, 2013. I believe Todd is here. Todd, if you'd please stand up. We welcome you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you for taking that on.
And we welcome you aboard, and I'd also like to comment that Judy did a lot of work for us. She was very dedicated to what she was doing, and we regret that she felt inclined to resign from the board, but we thank her for the service that she provided.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Strozik, Director of Central Services. A couple of months ago, the board tasked me with looking into items and our lease agreement with the Lewis County Museum, specifically the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Depot. And what you have before you under item number 4 of your agenda today is resolution number 12039, which is approval of agreements with the Lewis County Historical Society for support of the Lewis County Historical Museum. After reading through numerous documents and meeting with Commissioner Averill and with Mr. John Pinesco, the current president of the Lewis County Historical Society, several things were discovered with the agreements that were currently in place or being used. First of all was the lease agreement that was drafted was from 1984 that allowed the Lewis County Historical Society to use the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Depot as a museum. As you can imagine, since 1984, which is almost 28 years ago, things have changed. Our lease with Burlington Northern Santa Fe allows us to have the museum on the site. However, it does not allow for us to sublease that site. Therefore, the agreement you have before you, the updated one, is a 5-year agreement between Lewis County and the Lewis County Historical Society for use of the Lewis County, for the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Depot as a museum at no cost to the Historical Society. There is some stipulations in there. They can use the property to hold the museum on, or any activity that benefits or supports the museum. And this is very important. That part of the agreement will allow them to hold fundraisers, to generate revenue and various things for the museum, and to promote the museum, which is huge. The agreement, as I said, is for 5 years from the date of execution, and it will bring it up to current standards. There's insurance documents in it, requirements and stuff that we use now in the county. The second half of this resolution is a 1-year agreement that spells out what the county's contributions will be for the Lewis County Historical Society. As the board is aware, you make great contributions to the society to help fund the museum. For 2012, there is a $25,000 payment out of the Lewis County Auditor's Historic Preservation Fund money, of which $6,500 has already been contributed, and that happened at the end of 2011 to assist the museum with their current financial issues. So there is a balance still there. In addition, there is up to $35,000 in reimbursables for operating expenses at the board's discretion upon receipts that comes out of the stadium funds, which the museum has had in the past. But also, in addition to that, I think it needs to be stated, even though it's not in the annual agreement because it's not a direct payment, Lewis County, especially the Board of County Commissioners, contributes a lot of other funds towards that, including but not limited to is a $15,400 annual bond payment for the museum roof, is approximately $3,700 in property taxes, is $1,300 in insurance. And when I say that, that is the county's portion of fire and property insurance that we maintain on the ground, since it is under our authority. We do maintain that building. And about $8,800 in facilities maintenance. So that agreement is a 1-year annual agreement that will be put together annually and redrafted depending on the county's financial situation, the museum situation, and the direction from the board. The lease agreement is a 5-year agreement and it has a standard cancellation agreement clauses for both parties. So, and I believe, unless there's any questions for me on it.
I just want to make some comments before, and John is moving up. John is the new chairman of the Historical Society. And I think most of us are aware of the difficulties that we've experienced at the museum, and a new board has taken over and trying to right the ship and get it going, and they're doing a terrific job. And I want you to know that we, the members of the Board of County Commissioners, appreciate those of you who stepped forward and took this responsibility and saved and virtually saved the museum for us. It was an important step, but I do want to reemphasize the extent to which this Board of Commissioners is behind and supports the museum. As pointed out, we've got about $60,000 that we're providing in operational funds during 2012 for the operation of the museum. plus about another almost $30,000 that we have for the building itself. So this is a significant investment on our part to make this work.
Just to comment while you're coming up, John, I've been asked many times why the county is involved in this at all. And I hope John can enlighten. If not, I'll make another comment on that after you're done.
Thank you. Yes, John Pinesco. I represent the Historical Society. I'm the president of the board. And yes, all new officers took over officially January 1st, although we got our feet wet a few weeks earlier. What we found there was a mess. We were not aware that the insurance on the collection had expired months before for lack of payment. Liability insurance had expired, lack of payment. Errors and omission insurance expired, lack of payment. Water was being shut off for lack of payment. It was in disrepair. Fortunately, volunteers came forward, funds came forward from donations, and we have paid all bills up to date. We are in the black. We are operating in the black as of today. The finances have been completely secured. Everything is double-checked. Everything is run through by QuickBooks, reviewed on a weekly basis by a volunteer CPA. So we know where every penny is, and it is wonderful that money isn't disappearing the way it had in the past. So our finances are in good shape. Our plan is to emphasize the community linkage of heritage that we can be the hub for. We'll have a link with other museums, link with other heritage sites, so that when people come to this area and they go to one historical site, they'll be instantly linked with all the others. And people who visit on the internet will have those same links. So these new connections are being formed so that we're no longer going to have any turf battles. We're now all in the tourism business together to preserve the history and display the history which is unique to Lewis County. So our future is bright, our finances are good, our business plan is excellent. We hope that next year's financial agreement will be a lot less severe than this one, because we should be self-supporting, and that's where we're going. Now, whether we ever reach there, I don't think any museum ever reaches there, but people are willing to pay to come see what's there. It's a wonderful display, and we really appreciate the help you have given to make our volunteer efforts save this gem for our community.
Thank you, John. And my final comment would be that the county's involved because we are required by law to have a place to keep our historical history preserved, and we've delegated that responsibility to the museum pretty much, and so that's why the county is involved in this directly and is providing financial support for it. Thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have two hearings this morning. The first is on the budget amendment. And the way the hearings work, if you haven't been through this before, we have a staff presentation that lists what the amendment is, what the hearing is about. Then we have a question and answer period where you can ask questions of staff as to what that presentation said. And then we will have a formal hearing where you can voice your opinion for or against. And then we will close the hearing and have a ultimate vote. So, Donna Truman.
Morning, Commissioners. Donna Truman, for the record, Budget Director for Lewis County. I'm here to present Resolution 12-040, which is the first 2012 budget amendment. The amendment was posted in the East County Journal on the 11th and the 18th of January. The total amount of the resolution is requesting expenditures in the amount of $718,623, offset of revenue $468,623, and use of fund balance in the amount of $250,000. The original noticed amount was $250,000. The change to the noticed amount is $468,623. The change is for CDBG Fund 140, increasing expenditures and revenue for Community Development Block Grant for the Rural Washington Loan Funds. This is a grant that comes from Department of Commerce that will be passed through to the lending network to provide loans to local businesses located in Lewis County, Cowlitz County, and rural Thurston County. The original amendment for $250,000 was for the Risk Management Fund 505. This is increasing the expenditures for long-term care for Left 1 members. So again, the total resolution is $718,623.
Donna, the $468,623 was a grant that we actually got in 2011, but rather late in the year, and as a result, the lending fund didn't have an opportunity to expend that money, so we're carrying it into the 2012 budget. Is that correct?
That's correct. Normally, we true up all the contracts and all the grants in March or April in the first budget amendment, but the lending network had a need to spend the money immediately, so we decided we'd put these two resolutions forward early.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Questions from the audience? Any questions? I'll close the question and answer period and call for testimony. If anybody would like to testify on the budget amendment?
Do you want to have Donna's comments
We have Donna
adopted
signed
into the
up.
record?
Donna, would you like to have your comments incorporated into the record?
Yes, thank you.
So be it. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Any comments? Then I will close the hearing and call for a vote on resolution number 12-040.
I would move to approve resolution 12-041.
I'll second that.
It's actually 040, I think.
Yeah.
040.
Yep,
Am I
that's right. I was fooling around with this. We were going to put another one in, and it is 040. I'm sorry.
Motion been made and seconded to approve it, resolution 12-040. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
We need to read.
I'm sorry.
Read
We
it
need to
into
read
the
it into the,
record.
we need to read it into the record. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Lewis County 2012 budget, emergency and supplemental appropriations to, and transfers within current expense and various funds. This is resolution number 12-040.
Now I'll call.
Now, I'll comment before we go. There may be some of you out here that are new to this process, and you're wondering, we approved the budget just on the first week of December, and here we are in January, and we're already making a first budget amendment to it. Unfortunately, budgets are always a guess. And sometimes we know about something and sometimes we don't. I pointed out just like the CBG funding for the lending network was something that we had in last year. We didn't get it expended in time, and unfortunately, we didn't forward it into this budget. And the lending network can't lend the money without the approval. So we had to put it into the budget. So this is essentially what happens is that we either get funds we didn't know about, or we get large expenditures that we didn't anticipate, and we've got to amend the budget accordingly.
Is there any other comment? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor of resolution number 12-040, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. There are copies of the budget amendment at the front of the room if anybody's interested in the
Yep.
copy.
Thank you. If you didn't hear that, there are copies available if anybody wants to examine them more closely. Our second hearing is on the Davis Creek Replacement Project. Again, the same procedure. The staff makes a report. We call for a question and answer, and then we'll call for testimony on the project.
While they're setting up, I'd just point out this is kind of an unusual hearing insofar as that there is no ordinance or resolution that'll be approved afterwards. It is essentially an opportunity for us, along with FEMA, to get comments by the public on the choices of what we will do in this particular project. We'll take these comments into note, and they'll be used in the future negotiations on what we finally do.
Okay. Rod Lakey with Lewis County Public Works. There are handouts for this also for a timeline of events. If anybody would like to grab up at the front here. As Commissioner Averill pointed out, this is the process used, the hearing process to fit this meeting, not necessarily required, but it gives an opportunity for people to be heard if they have comments regarding the project. Just to go through a quick timeline for Davis Creek, the existing bridge was a 58-foot total length two-span bridge that was destroyed in 2006. And the bridge section was deposited about 100 feet downstream.
Where's the other section, by the way?
Excuse me?
Where is the other section?
It's unknown. We found two-thirds of the bridge, and somewhere buried is the other third, or destroyed, sections of it. But we do not know where it's at.
Or in Lake Scanoa.
So one of the pictures in there shows the two-thirds section that we found, and that was removed, but the county crews installed type 3 barricades, which are still up, but they're definitely more of a temporary. It's been a long time, I realize, but it needs something more permanent if the bridge would be remain washed out. But the flood event was presidentially declared, so it became eligible for FEMA public assistance. In 2007, July 2007, we had a project worksheet, which is FEMA's authorization for a project to remove that old bridge and get it out of the stream. The concrete was rubbleized, and R.W. Ryan did the work for us for $28,759 total cost.
I caught that, like, rubbleized?
They basically just
Turned to rubble, yeah.
and so they could haul it out, small pieces so they could haul it out. In March 2007 to the present, we have a lot of things going on, countywide with all the disasters and whatnot, but we had an initial project worksheet which showed basically the replacement at current codes and standards, and it was determined later that, and I'll let FEMA talk about this, they are here, but the project worksheet was downsized to $304,000 based on, not on constructability to current codes and standards, but to the existing structure that was destroyed, so that 58-foot structure. Our initial estimates were quite a bit higher at $834,000, but that was based on a longer bridge to span the floodplain using those current codes and standards. Lewis County made formal appeals, both 2 formal appeals to use codes and standards on other projects in the county, and that since this PW was not authorized at that time, we would fall into that same category as our understanding. And those appeals were eventually approved, so codes and standards has been approved for the county for bridge replacement. However, this PW and this process is still undetermined as far as the direction of the project. April 2008 to June 2009, we went forward with design through Berger ABAM, and up on one of the poster boards up here, we have what the design would look like or could look like for a bridge replacement. Designs are at 90%, and although estimated a bit high, we're looking at about a $1.6 million project for everything, for design, construction, permits, which is consistent with that type of bridge. But like I said, until we get finalized on what we're doing with the PW, that's just one option. In 2009, we reviewed that bridge essentially with environmental to ensure that we would span the floodplain. The bridge is proposed at 28 feet by 97 feet long, single span, and we would be 4 feet higher than calculated 100-year storm event, so it would handle debris that's anticipated that would be coming down Davis Creek. In 2010 and 11, there was effort put forth for other bridges in the county for the Chandler Bridge, and Davis Creek was definitely put on a back burner. And also FEMA had, hundreds of disasters to deal with, so environmental staff is pretty short anyway, but that effort was, at least for the county's effort, we requested that they go elsewhere and look at the Looting House and Chandler Bridge locations. So this one was put on a back burner, but it is coming around to determine what needs to be done here. And that's where we lead into this public meeting or public hearing. We're soliciting support from the public, either for or against replacing the Davis Creek Bridge. And discussion, staff reports, and presentations from FEMA are intended to identify the concerns and will be used to determine the project authorization or selection of an alternate project for Davis Creek Road. And essentially what it boils down to is if we replace the bridge, we have 90% plans which showed about 1.6 million, and that's the board on the right. The other, on the easel on the left, is an option to not replace the bridge and do hammerhead turnarounds at the old bridge location, but there's quite a skew to Davis Creek Road for residents on the east side of Davis Creek to get onto Highway 12. I would point out that we have not contacted any property owners for this, so this is just a sketch on a map. And that intersection essentially takes a small triangle parcel in its entirety. We have not contacted that owner, so I just want to make sure that we're not, jumping to conclusions here, but we would have to work through right away and buy that as part of an alternate project. But, so the two options, replace the bridge or not, we sent out a letter requesting anybody that has any questions, January 13th, to forward them to us prior to the meeting so we could be prepared, and did not receive any written response. However, I did talk to a resident out there that we may have somewhat of a flooding issue on the west side where residents could not get out that I was not aware of. So in addition to hammerheads, purchasing right away, that type of project for not replacing the bridge, we'd have some more work to look at as far as flooding issues. So we're not creating an island for I think there are only 2 or 3 residents on that side where they couldn't get out. So thank you for the resident for pointing that out, and just another thing we'd have to look at. Once again, this is a hearing or a meeting to let FEMA give them a chance to review all the information. They're not going to make a decision today. It is mainly just to gather information to formulate a recommendation for what this project might look like as far as either a bridge or not replacing the bridge with some type of improvements to make the turnarounds and whatnot. And as you can see from the map on the wall over there, it's a 1.6 mile loop, fairly short, but the bridge was there, and with the intersection improvements and possibly some more flood work from the gentleman today that I talked to, the original PW at $324,000 barely covers our cost to what we would have either spent for design and the improvements that what you see on that center board. So there's still some discussion to be had as far as that PW authorization, but we're getting to the point where it's time to they're getting to make a recommendation for what needs to happen. And with that, I'd like to, Dennis Burton is here with FEMA. And
before Dennis gets in there, I'd like
Yeah.
to ask a question. I am kind of interested in the people have identified that they would have flood problems, and just specifically what they were, because I thought there were entries in and out on both sides of this bridge.
There are, it's just that there's potential for, during certain flood events, and it sounded like it was major storms, that the intersection on the west end may have flooded, or a culvert near that west end may have flooded. So we need to evaluate that as far as if the bridge does not go in, what would be the impact to the residents?
In fact, during the '06 flood, that access on the west end of Davis Creek Road, with the blockage of Burton Creek, we actually had Burton Creek coming down that lane. I don't know if Davis Creek Road was, or Davis Lake Road, Creek Road was blocked off completely, but you couldn't get any place once you got there anyhow, so it didn't really matter that much.
So, yeah, are we taking a small island, making a bigger island, or is there, could there be elsewhere that?
Yeah. Ron, I noticed on the map on the west end of the road, we're bringing the east end out at a right angle to the highway fairly much, but on the west end there is a similar issue there. There's no plan there to rework that.
It can be looked at, it's just that the intersection on the east end is such a skew right now. The other end, the west end may be okay, maybe just minor improvements, but the east end is definitely a lot worse, where you cannot, to turn back towards the west or towards Chehalis, it's almost impossible if you stay on the pavement.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the other end's almost as bad going, if you go eastbound, the only difference is you're on the driver's side, so you can pretty much see the traffic, but the west end is skewed considerably towards the west also. So I think it's something we need to look at.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to save you for testimony, not for questions, okay? Because I think you have testimony, not a question to ask. Are there any other questions? Okay, I would like to close the question and answer period and ask Rod if your comments would be you like your comments incorporated into the hearing.
yes, please incorporate my comments from previous.
Having done so, I open the hearing on the Davis Lake Bridge project and our Davis Creek Bridge project, and now we have time for public testimony. Mr. Burton, now you can come up.
Permission to approach?
Yes. This is not a courtroom. You don't need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am Dennis Burton. I work for FEMA Region 10. Our office is located in Bothell, Washington. I came here today to thank you, number one, for allowing us to come and inviting us for the opportunity to explore some alternatives that may be appropriate to this project. Let me just say this, that in prep for that, what I'm about to say, and that is, Lewis County is the applicant. We recognize that. FEMA reimburses. We work with the applicant through the state. I work with Gary Urbis on this project as well as others in the state of Washington. However, on this particular project as well as on the other bridges that we've already encountered with you as an applicant, or the Luden House Bridge, which is going through a floodplain review, and the Chandler Bridge that went through the floodplain review and is obligated in terms of funds to the state funneled to the applicant. Let me quickly address the project worksheet addressed to as the $300,000 amount. FEMA recognizes that that is a project worksheet that was estimated to go back to pre-disaster design and function. FEMA is committed to working with the state, with the applicant, on in the near future on what it is to comply with the codes and standards you have for spanning the floodway or the floodplain. So that's still out yet to be done, but I just want to make you aware that that is one goal that we have in conjunction with the Davis Creek Bridge, is to update that project worksheet. We have an initial draft. I haven't shared it with Gary yet, but we're looking at what that might look like. We received your 90% design for the Davis Creek Bridge with the preferred alternative. We are currently looking at that right now. So, and I'm pleased to say that we are now focused on this bridge, and so this is a very key time for not only you as an applicant, the state and FEMA. Federal law requires the opportunity to explore alternatives to putting a facility such as the Davis Creek Bridge back in the floodplain, and that's honestly why I'm here today, is to invite comments to this project. Highway 12 has been identified as an option that may serve as the function of the bridge here, and it may meet the requirements of the residences there. Under that floodplain review, we need to invite this input to, what do you think, residents or public, of using Highway 12 versus putting the bridge back here? Irregardless of what that final decision is, either under the floodplain review, a FEMA action, or your action for alternate project or something different, like the hammerhead turnaround, stuff like that, FEMA will still continue working with updating the project worksheet, we call it, to look at the codes and standards, whether or not you actually put the bridge in or not. So on behalf of FEMA, I'd like to just invite or solicit input from the interested parties that may be here today, or another mechanism of your choosing to solicit input on the use of Highway 12 for access to these residences here versus putting in the bridge.
The access issue is not an issue since we've been doing this since the '06 flood. The residents have been using Highway 12. My biggest concern in not replacing the bridge is during the '06 event, there was considerable flow through and danger of losing not only that bridge, but the bridge on Highway 12 also. If an event in the future should come through and this bridge is reconstructed to current codes and standards and it does meet those, then the likelihood of it going out is far less than the one on the highway. And in which case, we would be concerned that the east end of the county would be cut off completely without this bridge being in there. I'm assuming something, probably shouldn't assume, and that is that a temporary bridge could be put in place relatively easily. Probably easier on the location of the old Davis Creek Bridge than on Highway 12. But our history has not been one of getting those things done in rapid order, in which case the residents up there are completely cut off from the west end of the county, and then we get the same thing. We basically can't get out of there. We've been there before. When the slide hit Randall several years back, when the whole east end was pretty much blocked off. So that would be my biggest concern with not approving a bridge or not getting the bridge back in there, is allowing an emergency route to exist. By the way, that road, if you don't know, used to be the highway before Highway 12 was reconstructed through the flats. The old timers had some pretty good ideas about putting those roads where they were because they didn't flood as easily. So.
Okay.
Lee, I have a question of you. I see that there's a forest road that is in there, and it looks like the access, I don't know how many people use that forest road.
A lot.
But you're going to have to, come from the west end to even get to it, because it's on the side of the bridge that if the bridge's not replaced, and you're coming from the east, you're going to have to drive all the way down and then loop back even to get to the forest road.
Yeah, it's roughly a 2-mile down 12 to the west entrance and then back up to the point. I don't view that as a major problem if we do like to go with the hammerhead, but the point's taken that that's a possibility. That is a concern.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Forest Service would have some issues there maybe, but I don't know if they're serious enough to warrant. I feel strongly both ways on this issue. I would really love to see a bridge back in there. The economic cost of that, I don't know, if we could really justify them and make it happen. That's the thing. But I still have that concern about what happens if. And during the '06 flood, we the county, and I was in office at the time. I was elected that day, as a matter of fact. We as the county worked diligently at the Davis Creek Bridge on Highway 12 to keep it from being washed out too, and subsequently had mitigation that we had to meet or were going to have to meet because we had put backhoes in the stream to save that bridge. So when you weigh all those consequences of what we have, the mitigation and so on, if a bridge in Davis Creek would avoid mitigation downstream, then that's a huge price to pay. So,
Oh, I appreciate that. Under this FEMA requirements, the federal law, of course, FEMA has got to make a determination if it's feasible to do something or not, whatever that option is. And so we do have to look at that. And I appreciate your comments. But other than that, I would just like, if there's anybody that has any input to it, I'd like to take notes on that before FEMA makes a final decision in that regard.
I guess I have two concerns. One is this happened almost 6 years ago, and we're still discussing it. And the second issue is with the codes and standards, is that the replacement cost is 300 and some thousand, but with the new codes and standards, it's 1.6 million, and that's a big difference for our budget.
May I comment? Thank you. Good observation. Again, I'd like to just reiterate that the 300,000 some odd dollar amount PW that's in the system, that's an estimate to go back to pre-disaster. It doesn't take into consideration codes and standards that were in place at the time that the bridge was washed out. So again, let me just emphasize that we're going to work with the state and you through the state on what those codes and standards are. And the $1.67 million is what is being said here in your plans is what that's going to cost. So, and what that means to you then as an applicant that I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but that's an important number to adjust to, whatever that number is, because you'll have that to work with either as a, depending on the outcome of the decision, if that's a reasonable alternative to go to, or a thing like we call alternate project. And I don't want to get into the weeds on that or not right now, but I certainly am available for questions.
I would just like to see that I'm trying to place my arms around a number of $306,000 or whatever it was to rebuild a bridge, and having just replaced the Chandler Bridge at considerably more than that amount, I've kind of questioned how realistic a number of $300,000 to replace a bridge, even to pre-existing or pre-flood standards, is pretty. I have trouble wrapping my arms around that. I kind of have trouble putting a culvert in for $300,000, let alone.
Yeah, understood. There was pre-disaster costs also for the other two bridges, but with the codes and standards, as you see witnessed on at least the one bridge, and we're currently reviewing the Ludenhouse Bridge, increases that amount significantly. So.
Yeah, understood. And that's why I say if we can go back to pre-disaster and not build it to codes and standards where we would be, but I don't think we can even do that, can we, Rod?
No.
Yeah.
Can't even consider not rebuilding it and not bringing it up to codes and standards.
Just let me be very clear that the number in the system at $300,000 is only to pre-disaster without codes and standards.
Right.
So,
I understand that part.
Yeah. So going forward, we're now fortunately at a time where there's not too many disasters, where we can focus on this with.
Here's my question, and that you can. My problem is the number somewhere between 306,000 and 1.6 million. And the issue, I think, in my mind at least, is if we're not going to rebuild the bridge for 1.6 million, then are we going to have enough financial help from FEMA to do the work that needs to be done to build the hammerheads and change the road alignments and so on and so forth? Is there going to be enough money available with the matching funds to be able to do that? And that's where that $306,000 number comes in there. I don't know if that's enough money to get the job done that we need to get done to provide the proper access for those people.
Right. The $300,000 project worksheet is history.
Okay.
What affords us now is the opportunity to go forward with the codes and standards, which will likely get it up above $1 million, quite honestly. Okay. So if you decide, for example, to request an alternate project, hammerhead or whatever other turnaround or other alternate project, then you would have the yet-to-be-determined approved amount using codes and standards that FEMA approves to use that toward that.
Okay, that satisfied my concern,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good question.
Anyone else like,
Thank you.
go ahead, anyone else would like to testify on this matter? The Davis Creek Bridge project? Would anyone else like to testify? Yes, sir, come on up to the mic, state your name and address, please.
Ed Spath, 262 Davis Creek Road. If you don't put in a bridge, why don't you build a road across?
Build what, Ed?
And if you don't put in a bridge, why don't you build a road across?
Through,
Because right here and right here, it floods. This belongs to the state. Why couldn't you build a road across there? Because there's this person, there's me, and there's this person, and whoever uses this road gotta have a way to get in and out of there.
Yep.
And there's an approach right there, and there's an approach right there. All you'd have to do is build a road.
all right, we'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Rod?
It's like, once again, that's one of the issues that was just brought up today, so it would be something to evaluate before proceeding with anything, really.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to testify on this matter? Would anyone else like to testify? Then I will close the hearing, and like I said, it's an information gathering hearing, and we've done so, and thank you, FEMA and the state representatives for being here and sharing whatever information you have. Continue to look at it, and I especially appreciate the fact, Mr. Burton, that we're still examining what the cost could be for effectuating a solution here, and whether that money is available to build a road across, build hammerheads, redesign the entry roads, or whatever we need to do. We appreciate your help. So this hearing is closed, and I will take another motion.
I move we adjourn.
See, am I supposed to second that?
If you can speak loudly.
Oh, okay, I second then.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.